Hello all. So this is not going to be a good video. None of my YouTube videos are. This is not going to be a quality video. I do not personally know how to make YouTube videos. It's a quality, it's a skill. It's a skill that I do not have. But sometimes a person just wants to vent, to talk about something. And this is one of those venty talky about times. So this is not going to be a good video. This is not going to be a scripted video. I'm just talking off the cuff about a whole lot of emotions. It's going to be a rough, very poor quality, very wild ride we are all about to go on, because I am about to review Spider-Man Brand New Day. But you have never seen a review quite like this. It's going to be a lot more cheap than your regular review. And it's going to be a lot different than your regular review. Because there's a lot I have to discuss about Spider-Man. Now, usually when I would review a movie, I would say the good and bad elements to kind of try to even out. But with Spider-Man Brand New Day, there is so much bad, and it's bad in such a unique way, I'm not sure if I can cover any good elements. So to just quickly say them and get them out of the way, the movie looks visually very impressive, and there's a handful of scenes that are really well done, and in isolation, those scenes would be very impressive. And there's a sense that there was a good movie here, and there could have been a good movie, but there is not. Okay, those are the good elements. Now let's go on to the actual review, where I will be saying nothing but bad things about this movie. But to cover the review properly, and this is why this review is nothing like any review you've ever seen, I have a lot of stuff I need to cover before I even touch on Spider-Man Brand New Day. So many different things I need to touch on before I get to the actual review. We are going to be here all blasted night. Actually, it's very early in the morning, so all blasted early morning. So before I even touch, or even try to touch, Spider-Man Brand New Day, the movie I am reviewing, apparently, I got randomly, and seemingly for no reason, you'll find out why later, I have to randomly talk about the movie Obsession. Yay! Like every other person on YouTube, yay! So, Obsession is a horror movie that came out this year. For those of you who don't know, and you don't know why I'm talking about Obsession with Spider-Man Brand New Day video, but you will find out. Unfortunately, you will. But Obsession is a horror movie that came out this year. Then the plot revolves around Bear, who, we don't know it yet when the movie starts, but Bear is actually a very questionable, kind of evil character. What am I saying kind of? He's a bad guy. He's a bad guy. He has a crush on a woman named Nikki. But as the movie goes on, it becomes very clear that he didn't really know much about Nikki. Like, Nikki hated her dad, and he was never aware of this. And Nikki acts very out of the ordinary throughout the movie, but he seems to not pick up on it as much, almost like he's not aware of how she normally is. Anyways, he supposedly has a crush on this woman. And he has a big old crush on this woman, but he can't ask her out. He gets a bit too nervous. So he buys this one wish willow stick, and he wishes, I wish Nikki, this girl that I like, loved me more than anything. And he snaps it and he breaks it. And what ends up happening is this unknown entity possesses Nikki, and this unknown entity loves Bear. Okay, it loves him. And throughout the movie, we're not too sure if Bear is aware of this. Because if he's aware of this, it means that he's kissing and making out with this woman that can't possibly consent to it. And he's assaulting her over and over and over again. As the movie goes on, it becomes more and more and more clear that he's fully aware of what's going on. And by the end of it, he's like, he actually knew it all along. Or he knew to extent of it all along. So he is unquestionably a bad character. He assaults the main character. He assaults Nikki and takes away her consent. She is being possessed by some random entity that makes her love this random dude. He fully knows it. He takes advantage of her. He's a bad guy. He assaults this woman who has no control over her own autonomy, and eventually the wish causes bad wish stuff to happen to him and he dies. Personally, I don't like the movie because it feels like a assault revenge movie because Nikki is assaulted. Only it's pulled off through supernatural means, and she never gets proper revenge. Her life is wrecked. So I don't like it because it's just too depressing for me. A lot of people liked it. But for me, I've seen tons of horror movies, and I feel like a lot of horror movies cover these same topics much better. And I don't like that it ended so nihilistically. That's just my feelings. You can like it if you want. This is not a review on it, but I had to give that context, and you will get the why later. So, important context. Character from the movie Obsession Bear likes Nikki, wishes that she loved him. She loses all control, has no control of any of her actions. This bizarre wish entity is controlling her actions, and he takes advantage of it and he assaults her. That is the plot of Obsession in a nutshell. Okay, putting that to aside. Moving on. Okay, so next thing to cover, because there's a lot of pretext. Marvel movies in general. Am I even aware of them at this point? Is any of us? Are any of us? So I, like a lot of people, watched Iron Man to Endgame and watched them all as they came out. While I was watching them, Marvel TV shows started to come out. I think there was Daredevil and Punisher and all that jazz. A weird thing about me, I have an easy time liking movies and getting into movies. I have a very hard time getting into shows. There's a couple of exceptions to that rule. There's a few shows that I really like. But 9 times out of 10, it's very hard for me to get into TV shows. Very hard. So when the Marvel movies are coming out, from Iron Man to Endgame, to Avengers Endgame, I didn't watch any of the TV shows. Because it didn't feel like I had to, and like I said, I have a hard time getting into shows in general, so I'm like, I don't really need to watch those. I'll just skip them, and I'll just watch the movies. Yeah! So then Endgame ended, and I thought it was a pretty good place to end things in general. But once Endgame ended, there was all these new shows that showed up out of the blue that were kind of made back to back to back to back to back. And suddenly there was this odd pressure that I was now supposed to watch all these shows. And there was just so gosh darn many of them. And then I was wary of taking on all this son homework because I was like, well, where do I start? Do I go backtrack and do Punisher and do Daredevil? Do I start there, or do I start with these shows? So I wasn't sure where to start. I decided to pause it and watch whatever the next Marvel movie that was dropped. And I don't even remember the Marvel movie's name, but it was about these people that fought this god that lived in Earth, and they were immortal beings that lived forever. And I just remember thinking, this movie is not that good. It's okay, I guess, but they expected me to watch 20 plus shows in order to get ready for this one kind of bad movie. Not really bad, but meh movie, we'll call it. A meh movie. And I was like, you know what? Marvel has officially become too much homework. I'm not watching anymore. And after that point, I started losing track of Marvel movies. And because they needed so much homework, the moment you miss one movie, it feels like you have too much to get caught up on. So once I missed one, then the next one came out and it was like, no, I gotta do all this homework to watch that one, so I guess I'll pass that one too. And then the next one came out, and that one needed even more homework, and there was still more shows dropping at the same time, and I just stopped. There was just too much, and every time I tried to get back into it, because I actually tried a couple times, it just felt more and more like there was just too much to do, and I just couldn't do it all. So I just stopped even trying. It just became too much. So barely into Marvel, if you can call it that. But we have more stuff to cover before I cover Spider-Man Brand New Day. Even more. Oh boy. Okay, but now to cover how I feel about Disney in general. I feel that's important to note in this point. So Disney had a long string of building up queer characters, but then canning them or undercutting them at the last moment. There was a lot of examples of news stories dropping about the first queer character in a Disney movie, and this same news story broke a good 6+ times. And each time the character was underwritten, next cut out of the film. They were cut out of the film internationally, so everybody felt they didn't count, and then they redid it again and again and again and again. And again. And it got kind of annoying. Kind of really annoying. And then Trump won his second time as presidency. And when that was going on, Disney was making a show with a trans lead. And the moment he got in, they cut out the trans character literally the very next day. And I was like, you know what? I don't have to put up with this. This is too blatantly trying to be good with queer people, but be queerphobic at the exact same time and playing both fences. It's just too annoying. It is clearly queerphobic. I'm out. And I decided just to do a Disney ban. And I thought at first maybe I was being too brash. But then Disney doubled down on AI and started really pushing how pro AI it was going to be. I guess now I have to talk about that before I talk about Spider-Man Brand New Day. I find AI to be fundamentally, absolutely horrifying, to the point where I find it immensely disturbing. Okay, so I find the idea of AI psychosis, the idea that someone is talking to a bot or a thing on the net that just agrees with everything the person says. So whatever you say, no matter what it is, it will find a way to agree to you to some extent. And because you're talking to this thing that is in essence yourself, that's always agreeing with you, you end up thinking you're always right no matter what you are talking about. And because you think you're always right, you end up in this bizarre echo chamber with yourself where you keep telling yourself you're right over and over and over again. And you keep telling yourself you're right over and over again. And this echo chamber starts quickly breaking down your sanity until you have none left. And by the end of it, you might end up seriously harming yourself. There's been many cases of this. A good fair number of them at this point have ended in suicide. Several people have harmed themselves and or killed themselves because of AI psychosis. They died. And I find the idea of losing your sanity because you get lost in an echo chamber with yourself as legitimately one of the most creepy, disturbing, shocking things I have ever heard of. It sounds terrifying. By the end of it, you have no idea what's going on anymore because you're just talking to yourself over and over again. I know I talk to myself a lot. Maybe that's why it hits so close to the home, but it just seems like the most disturbing thing ever to me. And that's ignoring all the other problems that are with AI, which there's a lot of problems with AI. But that main thing scares the bejesus out of me to the point where I'm fundamentally terrified of it. It scares me. I think that concept should be scary for anybody to some extent. But yeah, that scares me a lot. So Disney doing Tron Ares, which was I looked into it. I watched it illegally without paying for it. Arrest me. Oh no. That movie was pro AI propaganda. There's no way of saying or buts. So that kind of cemented, hey, you made the right call. You made the right call. You should have banned Disney. Good for you. Good for you. So as you kind of can determine by all these statements, I don't like Disney. I banned them. I'm not watching them anymore. And I'm very out of Marvel. So that begs the question, why in the world did you watch Spider-Man Brand New Day? Why? Why did you do that thingy? Well, to break down that, we will get to the review. Maybe in 20 years. We will get to it. To break down that, for me, I love going to the theater. It is an experience. I love doing it. But I live in this small town where we have 2 theaters and they don't really show any movies I want to watch. They only show mainstream, family-friendly stuff that gets butts in seats. And there's only the 2 small theaters and they only show 1 movie at a time. And that's all in my small little town. If I wanted to watch a horror movie in theaters, like something I wanted to see, like Evil Dead Burn or something, I'd have to drive out 2 whole hours plus see it in that theater and then drive all the way back. And I am not up for that. I am not up for that. But I love the idea of a theater experience. I love sitting in the chairs. I love seeing the big screen. I love the snacks. So when somebody tells me they want to see something in theaters, I will say yes, just for the experience. It doesn't matter what movie you slap on there. It's a theater movie. It's a big deal. The experience demands that I see it. My sister wanted to see Spider-Man Brand New Day. And I'm like, I don't want to see that movie. Disney's on rightful ban. I'm out of Marvel. But by golly, I love the theater. I want to see something in theater. And I had a fair understanding that there was a good chance that Spider-Man Brand New Day was probably going to be the only movie I saw in theaters this year. Just because of how my life works and where I live and all that jazz. And I want to see at least 1 movie in theaters this year. It's important. So I guess I will watch Spider-Man Brand New Day. So now you have the why I actually watched this movie. Why I decided to go out and watch this movie when everything indicates I shouldn't be watching this movie. So now we can start to finally, now that we have all that context, the much context, we can start to finally cover Spider-Man Brand New Day in all of its glory and its many, 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 many flaws. Okay, so there are, like I said, this movie is bad in a very unique way. I haven't seen a movie bad in this way ever before. So if I start breaking down the main bads, I'm going to get caught up in that. I'm not going to address the smaller bad things that I still think are important to address. So I'm going to address the small bads first, the nitpicks first, and then we're going to address the actual big bad elements. So nitpick number 1 of the minor stuff that maybe only I have a gripe with. Spider-Man, Peter Parker in this, has a friend in the police force. This woman that calls him often for tips and they help each other out. So there's this cop that investigates crime. She calls Peter. They talk things out. They work together, yada, yada, yada. So he's friends with a cop that helps him out. This felt weird. This feels weird. All the other versions of Peter Parker / Spider-Man that I've seen have always been that the newspapers kind of hate him. You know, Jonah Jameson is like, let's get the newspapers to say Spider-Man's bad. And the police, as a result, kind of hate him. And they're always questioning him. So he's always at odds with the police and with the general news. So it felt genuinely off that the police liked him and were helping him out. It just didn't feel right. He should be at odds with them to some degree. It just felt off. It's a personal opinion thing. That's fine. That's why I said it's a nitpick. But it generally feels off that he has a cop friend when usually the newspapers and the cops are against him. So it felt a bit off. Nitpick number two. How is anyone supposed to follow these movies anymore? How? There is like so many parts in this movie that are like, oh, you should have watched this or that or this. That is just like becomes eye-rolling at a point. And there are elements in this movie that I am very sure that there are no movies or shows that touched on these things, but they're treated the exact same way as all the other stuff that comes out of nowhere. So for example, there's these ninjas called the Hand in this that fight with Spider-Man. Now they're not properly established in this movie, but I'm 99% sure they weren't established in anything else. But they're kind of treated like all the other random guest nods and guest appearances by other characters in this movie, like the Hulk and like Black Widow. But I thought she died. I know it's some other character. That's what I'm saying. That's the extent I'm out of these movies. But apparently Black Widow's in this, Back from the Dead, by a different character. I don't know the context. So the Hand is treated just like these other elements. But I'm fairly certain the Hand wasn't in anything else. So even if you watch every single Marvel thing, you're still going to walk into this and see certain things that are like, wait, I guess I must have missed a show or movie because I don't know who this Hand is. It never explains. It never gives you any context. So even if you watched everything, you'll still be like, man, I must have missed something. What did I miss? I don't know. So there's still, even if you did your homework, and you did the impossible, and you saw everything, there is still this sense that you've missed a ton, and you're still kind of lost. And it's not done in like a Superman kind of way, like Superman from last year, where you're supposed to be lost and you're supposed to be thrown in. No, it just like I said, it treats the Hand, and it treats all the other elements from prior films like the same, so you feel like no matter what, you've missed stuff. This movie doesn't stand on its own at all. Okay, I think a fundamental part of being a good movie is that the movie can stand on its own. This movie can't. It just can't. It's breaking at every scene to barely stand at all. How does anybody follow this stuff anymore? How are you following? If you can follow this stuff at this point, you deserve a medal. Good for you. You deserve something. You did good. You did good. Good on you. You are good. Okay, so those are my nitpicks. Now let's go over what is so fundamentally wrong with this movie. Oh boy. Okay, so how do I even describe this movie? This movie is like watching 3 different movies that have no relation whatsoever. All 3 movies are actually pretty good films, but they have no relation whatsoever, and they're jammed together in such a way that they actually contradict each other. And as a result, the whole movie feels like a mess, and none of it actually makes any sense. What are the 3 movies? So there's 3 different movies that have no relation, all crammed together in one movie, which is Spider-Man Brand New Day. What are the 3 movies? Movie number 1. Peter Parker / Spider-Man, his mutant abilities, his spider abilities, they start to change radically, and he starts to become more powerful, but in a way that he has no control over his own actions. And he feels very uncomfortable about this, and he doesn't know how to respond. His body is literally changing, and he's, in a sense, maybe becoming a monster. So kind of a body horror element, which is kind of cool. That's something I'd like as a horror fan. So that's movie number 1. Kind of dark horror, Spider-Man's becoming Man-Spider, where he grows out the 6 arms. That doesn't happen in the movie. If it did, maybe I'd like that one part and not the rest, because we'll get to the rest, but that does not happen in the movie. Spoilers! I should have mentioned that earlier. I don't care. This is a review unlike any other. I'm just dropping spoilers without caring. This movie is still in theaters. You probably haven't seen it. Who knows? You know, because you're the one watching. But anyways, that's movie number 1. Movie number 2. Spider-Man / Peter Parker is up against a new threat. One that the comics have never actually tackled. This being that can move from their own body to someone else's body within about 30 feet or so. And then from that person's body, they can move to another body within 30 feet of that body. So they can body hop. They possess people, and they move between people by about 30 feet. This is a very unique power, but more importantly, and most importantly, this character is by far the most evil and sadistic person that this version of Peter Parker has ever faced before. This person is far more malicious and far more like, without rules or lines than anyone Peter Parker has ever faced. And as such, he's in for the biggest danger. And he doesn't know how to respond to it because the power set is so unique. We will go over why I keep emphasizing how evil this character is. But yeah, that's basically the second movie. Peter Parker is up against his worst threat just simply because the character is very unique and they're really evil. We will address why I feel this way. Movie number 3. Peter Parker / Spider-Man finds out that mutants, like the X-Men, are actually real. And one of them, Jean Grey, is being captured by a questionable government agency and is going to be examined and studied to find out how her powers work, probably to the point where it gets her killed. Peter Parker, not wanting someone to die for no reason, decides to save Jean Grey. That's movie number 3. Now you're probably wondering how these 3 very different movies work in one movie. Would you believe me that the evil entity jumping from body to body to body in the second movie is, spoilers, so many spoilers, is actually also Jean Grey? Would you believe me? You probably would if you looked up the spoilers, but if you're any rational person, you shouldn't, because that don't make no sense, but that's the way this movie goes. And this creates so many fundamental problems with this movie, I don't even know how to cover them all, but I am going to try my darndest to try and cover them all. So, first of all, remember when I stressed several times over that this entity, I'm going to call it the entity. I'm not going to call it Jean Grey. Okay? Like I said, movie number 2 has nothing to do with movie number 3. So the thing that's possessing and jumping to people isn't Jean Grey because they have no relation to each other. They are very blatantly different characters. So I'm going to break down the entity's action by just referring to them as the entity. Okay? I'm just going to call them the entity without calling them Jean Grey, because I want to emphasize that they are different characters. Okay, so earlier in this breakdown, I had stated that the entity is the most malicious and evil character Peter has ever faced, or so this film will have you believe. Why did I emphasize that so much? So there are 2 key scenes that happens relatively early on to establish that this character has no boundaries and will do whatever they want, and has no limitations, and is out for blood, and is immensely malicious. Scene number 1, the entity walks up to Peter Parker, possessing some random person, and says, "Hey, Peter Parker, I know you're Spider-Man, and I know you love MJ. I'm going to find MJ and kill her, because I don't like you because you're getting in my way. That's what I'm going to do." And then Peter Parker's like, "You won't do that because I will stop you." And then the entity's like, "Oh, really? Body jump!" And it's in someone else. And he's like, they're like, or she's like, or whatever its gender is. I'm not sure if it's gender. They're like, body jump into this other person. They're like, "No, you won't stop me because I move very quickly." And then they back up onto the road. There's a road. They're actually by a street. They back up onto a road and they let a car hit them. Dead on. Full speed. Now, we never see this character again that gets hit by the car, but given the speed, we as the audience are probably supposed to assume they're dead. They could have lived. But everything kind of indicates that that person's dead, and the entity at least was trying to kill them. After that person gets smacked by the car, it jumps into another person, and then Peter chases it as it jumps from person to person, and he tries to track it down and get to MJ first, and they're in a bit of a chase. And he's trying to get to MJ first, and then he's trying to get to them by jumping through people. But the point is, before that chase starts, the Thing kills a random person right in front of Peter, just to kind of mess with him. Obviously, the intent was to shock Peter to his core by having him see a random person out of the blue get killed, so Peter wouldn't be able to run after them fast enough. To just basically stole them out by shocking them with a grotesque death. Literally killed someone just to slow the guy down. He had the thing had a person walk out into traffic, get hit dead center by a car, kill them just to slow Peter down and make a point. That is messed up. Okay? That is messed up. Alright? So that's scene number 1. Okay? Scene number 2 that establishes this character as being without limits is Peter Parker / Spider-Man gets to MJ first, supposedly, and brings her up to a top of the building. I don't remember why they went up at the top of the building. There was a lot of stuff that happened in this movie, and I got a bit turned around. But he brings her up at the top of a building, and he's like, I saved you. Now, Peter Parker does not know it, but MJ, that he just saved, is actually being possessed by the entity at this point. So the entity hijacks her body and has MJ say, hey, Peter, I know who you are. I can actually remember you. I remember everything, and I remember that I love you. I actually love you. I love you, Peter. Let's kiss. And they kiss a bit. And while they're kissing, she pulls away for a moment, and she's like, I'm actually the entity. I was just messing with you for fun. And then she proceeds to, taunt him a whole bunch. They get into a scuffle, and she basically jumps herself off of a building, trying to kill MJ in the process. So, remember when I sporadically, for no apparent reason, brought up Obsession? Remember when I did that at the very, very beginning, and you were wondering why? Why is this random man bringing up this random horror movie, which he apparently doesn't like, called Obsession? Well, what Bear did in Obsession is what the entity did in this. It pulled a bear. It did the same thing. Exactly. To a T. It possessed a random woman and tricked a man into sexually assaulting her. And then it tried to get this woman to kill herself. All to mess with Peter. All to mess with his mind. It literally tricked Peter into sexually assaulting the love of his life and then tried to have the love of his life end her life. YouTube has a problem with certain words. I don't care. I won't make any money on this. I won't. I'll get free likes, and that's it. Free likes. I can't even talk right. But the entity tricked Peter into sexually assaulting the love of his life and then tried to have the love of his life kill herself just to mess with Peter. So she killed one guy flat out just to mess with Peter. She tricked Peter into sexually assaulting the love of his life, and then she tried to have the love of his life kill herself. I think it's safe to say that this thing is really evil. I think the scene of the entity tricking MJ into making out with Peter and then trying to kill herself is generally one of the most unnerving scenes I've seen in a movie in quite some time. It was generally really creepy and really off. So I think it's safe to say that this being is really evil. I think it's safe to say that. Now let's jump to movie number 3. It turns out that this entity all along was Jean Grey. A hero character from the X-Men movie / comic / whatever. It was actually Jean Grey all along. And then Peter Parker, realizing that Jean Grey has been kidnapped by a questionable government agency to be studied on, is then like, oh, that entity that's been possessing people, they were just trying to save their sister who was also kidnapped by this questionable government agency. So they were just trying to save their sister all along, so all their actions were in the right. I gotta save Jean Grey right now. Yes, this is how the plot plays out. This person sexually assaults Peter Parker's love of his life and then tries to kill her and kill the dude right in front of his eyes. And then not even a day later, he's like, I gotta save this woman because she's actually a nice person. She's a good person that is going to be experimented on and killed. I gotta save her because she's a good person. After all that happened. Okay, so how do I even break down how messed up this is? But to give an idea of the contrast, when he's trying to save her, she is trying to kill people because she's still herself, and she's trying to kill a guy, and Peter's like, "No, Jean Grey, you would never kill anyone. I know you. You wouldn't kill that guy that was torturing you for science in the government. You're not that kind of person." Peter, what is wrong with you? She killed someone earlier that same day in front of your eyes. She hit a man with a car. You saw that. Why are you saying she's not the kind of person to kill? Why are you saying she's not the kind of person that would kill someone? You saw her kill someone. Hello, nice cat. My cat, Dusk. You saw her kill someone. So why are you saying she's not the kind of person to kill? She killed someone in front of you. Why are you saying she's not someone to kill someone? She killed a man in front of your eyes less than a day ago. So why are you saying that? What? Did you just smack your head so freaking hard against a wall that you forgot everything that happened earlier in the day? Is that what happened? Because she killed a dude right in front of you. You saw that. I saw that. Everybody saw that. So as you can see, this doesn't actually make any logical sense in the plot. Peter Parker has very little reason for trying to save Jean Grey, given every evil thing Jean Grey has done. And Peter Parker acts very odd considering all the prior context to this event. Like, he could try to save her out of principle, that's fine, but his actual statements that he makes doesn't make sense with what's happened earlier in the movie in any way. At all. At all. But that's not the only problems that this glaring thing causes. Okay, let's go on to the other problems this glaring thing causes. X-Men has always been a kind of problematic, kind of not problematic series. When X-Men was originally made, it was an allegory on queerphobia and racism issues. The X-Men, mutants, were people born the way they were and mistreated by society. Now, way back when that thing was initially written and made, you couldn't really talk about some of those topics directly. You had to use allegories to pull it off. And that's what X-Men does. It uses allegories to pull off those statements. But this causes a kind of gray area because you're saying that the mutants, the ones that are different, the ones that are born different, the allegories for different races and different sexualities and different genders, you're saying that they're mistreated because of who they were born as, and that's wrong. Fine, fair. But you're giving them superpowers and you're making them dangerous, and you're making some of them, like Magneto, for example, very callous in their actions and very dangerous. So that kind of accidentally justifies the questionable acts done against them. You can always say, oh, Pyro can start fires with his mind, so our actions to try and limit his powers or stop him are justified, and therefore our hate is justified, so we will stop him. And in a way that justifies bigotry and queerphobia and racism. Now, in most X-Men movies, the X-Men are blatantly the heroes, and the wrongs done against them greatly outweigh the wrongs of some of the questionable mutants. As a result, they don't read bad or mean-spirited or that, and they work as allegories. But, as you can kind of tell, the mutants always go on this kind of gray line where if you go too far in showing their powers, you're actually becoming queerphobic. The only mutant in this movie is Jean Grey. She's the only one. And she sexually assaults a woman to make a point, kills a guy, and tries to kill MJ. And at the end of the movie, she tries to destroy half of New York. All to get revenge. And her powers are shown to be astronomically powerful. So it is impossible not to read this in bad faith. If you see mutants as an allegory for racism and queer people and different genders and trans people, if you see them as anything like that, it's generally hard not to see this movie as queerphobic. It goes so harsh with what Jean Grey can do and what she does in the first chunk of the movie that it's kind of impossible not to see this movie as queerphobic to some extent. This plot line and this plot concept is queerphobic. It probably doesn't mean to be, it's probably accidental, but it's executed so poorly, and her actions are unquestionably so evil that it's unquestionably queerphobic to some degree. Yeah, let's have the only mutant character be out for blood, sexually assault the lead character, try to kill her, and kill some random dude, and have her be the allegory character for different races and for queer people. That works! That makes sense! Let's do that! Let's have an X-Men mutant movie with only one mutant, and let's make them a bad one. That's great! That works! No problems there! I don't see anything wrong with that! Oh my god! Oh my god, this horrible movie! This horrible movie! How could you make a movie this stupid? How could you make a movie this stupid? No one saw any problems with it. They all wrote this, they all went along with it. No one saw any problems with this plot. You had one mutant. You could have just put one other mutant in the movie and had them be good. Just one other, and it would have made it a little bit less problematic. But no, just the one. Just the one. And if you think I'm exaggerating or I'm being over the top, which is fair, I am being kind of cartoony. Peter Parker / Spider-Man's best friend in this is the Punisher. And the Punisher takes the stand that Jean Grey needs to be killed because she's too dangerous. And the movie sides with him quite a bit. It's 50 siding with Punisher, 50 siding with Peter Parker. So that means both arguments are valid. So it's literally saying the guy who says the queer people / different races people should be killed for our own safety is right. And 50% says Peter Parker should save the race / queer allegory character. Yeah, so, yeah, this isn't even exaggerated. It is part of the plot that the Punisher thinks Jean Grey should die because she's too dangerous. And the movie, to a significant extent, sides with him and says he's in the right and doesn't show this in a bad or questionable light whatsoever. It shows it in an understandable light. It's like the necessary evil. The necessary evil is killing the one and only mutant character in the movie. The one and only! Once again, they didn't even bother to make any other ones. It's just the only one person, the only one. And Punisher's there we should definitely kill her. And the movie partially sides with him. No one saw any issue. No one saw any issue with this. No one saw any issue with this. No one. I know someone did, and that's probably why they made it. Okay, but this isn't even the only problems with this. You know, the morality thing and the non-logicalness of the plot, that's not even the only problems with this glaring thing. And the other major issue with this is Jean Grey's powers. I haven't seen a lot of Marvel, but I saw a good number of the X-Men movies, and I'm aware of the X-Men to a good extent. Jean Grey's powers are absolutely positively nothing like the entity's powers. They don't work the same way. They are different on a very blatant level. Jean Grey can move stuff with her mind and can possess multiple people and do a whole bunch of other ridiculous stuff with her mind, and the entity can simply and only control one person at a time and jump between bodies. They are immensely different power sets that are clearly different characters. You're probably wondering how the entity even becomes Jean Grey. Like, you're probably saying, the entity can't be Jean Grey because their powers are too different. Jean Grey can do all this other stuff. So how does that work? Well, near the end of the movie, Jean Grey just develops all of the other powers in one singular scene instantaneously. She just develops them all. Out of the blue, it's not out of the blue, she's tortured a whole lot, but she gets all the other powers, and then she has them. Now, you could argue that it makes sense given the stress of the situation that she would get these other powers and her mind would develop. But here's the thing. Here's the thing with that. She goes from being able to control one person at a time to being able to control 500 people at a time. She goes from being able to just control one person at a time to moving stuff with her mind and healing wounds with her mind. You can gain a new power, like you could become stronger, but you have to actually learn how to use that power and how to manage it. Okay? A lot of people don't like the movie Man of Steel. But in Man of Steel, there is actually scenes of, like, I don't even remember Man of Steel's the guy's enemy's name, but he doesn't know how to use the powers at first. It froze him off, and he slowly, the bad guy in Man of Steel, he slowly learns how to handle his powers in the span of about 5 minutes. But he still has this scene where he manages and learns the powers, and he better reckons with them. He doesn't instantly know. He has to master those powers that he just got, and he has to learn that new skill. Controlling 500 people's minds at once and using them all like puppets is a new skill. You'd have to train and manage that. And she just instantly can know how to do all that. Like, sure, she could control 500 people, but how would she manage it with it being a completely new power that she's never used before? Now, you might be saying, well, maybe this is a dumb movie, which it unquestionably is, so maybe you shouldn't hold it to that high of a caliber. I will point out the first movie in the Free movies, and that is Spider-Man slowly mutating into a different being and gaining new powers himself. He gains new powers, and for the straight 2+ hours, he learns how to manage and use those powers. The whole first big chunk of the movie is him trying to figure out how his new powers work and understand how his new powers are and manage them. So he gets these new powers and he spends a whole movie learning them. And has Jean Grey get all these new powers, and she knows how to use them instantly. So it does the same plot beat for both characters, but for Peter it has him take the whole movie to learn it, and Jean Grey just knows it all instantly because I guess she's just really, really, really smart. It literally does the same plot concept for both characters, but for Peter it understands the concept of learning new powers, and for Jean it just forgets it. It just forgets it. She just instantly knows how to control 500 people when Peter didn't know how to handle his powers. So it's doing the exact same thing, but for Peter, it remembers that it takes a while to learn new stuff. But for Jean, she would just instantly know how to use her powers because she's really smart. Oh, God, this is a horrible movie. It's a horrible movie. Oh, God. So, yeah, that doesn't make sense. She just instantly knows how to use all of her powers without doing any learning after a whole movie of Peter having to learn his powers. It's very dumb. Very dumb. Very, very dumb. out of all these problems, I think the worst one is the whole accidentally making light of sexual assault. I can just see, this is why I pointed out and started this review with the statement about obsession and breaking down obsession. I can see so many people not seeing a problem with what Jean Grey does in this movie simply because she's a woman. They'll be like, oh, it's not really assault because she's a woman. So it doesn't really count. That argument will be made, and it's clear that the makers of this film felt it didn't really count because they don't give any weight on it after they have her turn good out of the blue near the end. There's no scene of Peter being like, I hate the fact that I have to save you right now. You assaulted the woman I love. You tricked me to assaulting her, and now I gotta save you. Like, any rational person would have begrudgingly save this person, but Peter doesn't. Peter completely forgets the fact that he was tricked into sexually assaulting the love of his life by this person. He forgets it. He doesn't mention it. He just goes along with it because we're in a third different movie that has no relation to the other two movies. So as you can tell, by the end of the movie, it becomes a jumbled mess and no plot point actually makes any sense anymore. Because every plot point, in a sense, contradicts every other plot point because these are three fundamentally different movies smashed together in a non-coherent way. You can make an argument that any of these three movies would make a good movie on their own, but jumbled together, it makes no logical sense. And I think given with that context, you would have to agree with me that this is genuinely a really, really bad movie with inconsistent characters, non-logical writing, plot holes a mile long, nothing really fits together, and everything kind of just implodes by the end. This is a trash heap. This is a rightful 3 out of 10, 2.5 out of 10 if I ever saw one. The more you describe how broken this movie's plot is, because the different plot threads contradict each other so much, the more broken it becomes. At the beginning of this review, I was going to give this sucker a 4 out of 10, but no, I'm dropping it to a 2.5 at this point. The more I talk about this movie, the more I realize just how broken it is. Just how flawed it is. Just how, frayed at the edges it is. Just how none of this works on a logical level. She just instantly knows how to do everything. Pierre's just ignoring the fact that she tricked her into assaulting his MJ. She could just try to kill MJ and it's no big deal. Oh, the Punisher is, trying to pull a KKK and the movie's okay with it. Everything in this movie doesn't work. This movie is so bad. It's so fundamentally bad. How can anyone like this stuff at this point? How can anyone? If you liked it, all I can say is you liked it. I don't get it. Good for you, I guess. You saw a movie you liked. I sure didn't. I saw a dumpster fire of a movie. But I got really good food out of it at the theater. The hot dog was awesome. So I think I can safely say I made all the right calls in my life. And I indeed just stayed out of Marvel like I initially told myself to. Spider-Man Brand New Day is a mess of a movie, makes no sense, and contradicts itself at every turn because it's several different movies crammed together in non-logical sense. As Jean Grey be questionably the most disturbing and evil character in all the Spider-Man films, at least in the newer Marvel set, and it doesn't see anything wrong with any of this. All probably because she's a woman. What the? Oh my God, so bad. I am posting this anyways. It's the worst video on YouTube. Everyone has every right to make fun of me. I'm putting this online. This movie sucked 2.5 out of 10. I rightfully am not watching any more Marvel movies. Thank the good Lord, I am out.